All right, future officers, back again for our daily deep dive into current affairs, tailored specifically for your UPSC journey. It's February 2nd, 2025.
Lots to cover.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about hidden dangers in your pantry, a fascinating shift in the global economy, and India's helping hand on the world stage.
Sounds good.
So kicking things off with something that might hit a little close to home,
Right.
especially for those late-night study sessions. We're talking about ultra-processed foods, UPFs. You might think you're making healthy choices, but the Economic Survey 2024-25 and the Indian Council of Medical Research are raising some red flags about what's really in those seemingly convenient options.
Right.
What's the concern?
Well, the ICMR has actually released a list of what they classify as UPFs.
Oh, wow.
And it's pretty surprising, actually. It's not just chips and sugary drinks, the usual suspects.
Right.
They've included things like certain types of bread, protein powders, even commercially produced paneer.
Huh.
These foods might seem like staples, especially for busy students burning the midnight oil.
Yeah, for sure.
But the survey highlights the potential health risks of eating too many UPFs.
Oh, wow. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think of those as unhealthy, but it sounds like there's more to the story.
Definitely. These foods are often packed with calories, but lack the essential nutrients your body needs.
Wow.
Vitamins, minerals, fiber.
Yeah.
And the economic survey points to a link between high UPF intake and a higher risk of chronic diseases. Things like cardiovascular disease, obesity, even some types of cancer.
So that's a serious wake-up call. I know we'll be looking at those healthy snacks a little differently now. So how can a busy UPSC aspirant, someone who's really focused on their studies, navigate this minefield of processed foods?
It's all about being aware and making informed choices, really. Read labels carefully, look for whole, unprocessed ingredients, and try to prioritize home-cooked meals whenever possible.
Great advice. Now, let's shift gears from our personal health to the health of the global economy. The economic survey also talks about something called geo-economic fragmentation.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty complex. Can you break it down?
Basically, it means that geopolitics is playing a much bigger role in trade and investment decisions these days.
Okay.
In the past, countries mostly collaborated based on what made economic sense.
Right.
But now it's more about forming partnerships based on shared political ideologies or regional alliances.
So it's like the global playground is being divided into teams.
Kind of, yeah.
What does this mean for India? We're trying to make our mark on the world stage.
Well, the IMF is predicting that this fragmentation could actually lead to losses in global GDP.
Oh, wow.
Which is a worrying trend, especially for emerging economies like India.
Yeah, that makes sense. It highlights how something that sounds really abstract can have real-world consequences.
Exactly.
Speaking of impactful concepts, the economic survey also expresses concerns about financialization. What is that?
It basically refers to the increasing dominance of the financial sector in an economy.
Okay.
Now, a strong financial sector is important, but the survey warns against excessive financialization, especially for a developing country like India.
So too much focus on finance can actually be a bad thing.
It can be, yeah.
Interesting. What are some of the downsides we need to be aware of?
Well, one key concern is that it can lead to income inequality.
Right.
And even wage stagnation. So instead of investing in industries that create jobs and tangible goods, resources might be channeled toward short-term financial gains.
I see.
Which don't really benefit the broader economy in the long run.
Right. It's fascinating how everything is interconnected. From what we eat to global economic forces, it all impacts India's future. Now, before we move on to part 2 of today's deep dives, let's zoom in on a specific event. India recently provided humanitarian aid to the Kurdistan region of Iraq.
Right.
Can you give us a little context?
Sure. The Kurdistan region is in northern Iraq. It has its own unique geography, key cities like Erbil, and a distinct political landscape.
Okay.
It's been facing some challenges, and India's aid signifies a growing relationship between the two.
So this is more than just a one-time thing.
Absolutely. India has actually established a consulate in Erbil.
Oh, wow.
And there are a significant number of Indian workers contributing to the region's economy, particularly in sectors like steel, oil, and construction.
So it's a good example of India stepping up on the world stage, showcasing its commitment to international cooperation.
Exactly. It certainly is.
Yeah.
India's role on the global stage is definitely something to watch. Now, shifting gears from geopolitics, there's been a pretty exciting discovery in the wildlife community. The rusty spotted cat has been spotted in West Bengal.
Oh, yeah. I read about that. It's amazing how such a tiny creature, barely bigger than a house cat, can generate so much excitement.
Well, this sighting is actually significant because the rusty spotted cat is classified as near threatened by the IUCN, and a significant portion of its global population is right here in India.
So it's more than just a cute cat sighting. It's a good reminder of India's rich biodiversity and the responsibility we have to protect these species.
Exactly. Speaking of rare finds, there's another exciting discovery, this time from the Western Ghats. Naturalists have spotted the saffron reedtail damselfly along the Netravati River.
I have to admit, I'm not as familiar with damselflies as I am with cats, but I'm guessing there's a reason this is making news.
You're right to be curious. This particular damselfly is endemic to the Western Ghats.
Oh, wow.
And it's highly sensitive to environmental changes.
Okay.
So its presence is a good sign for the health of that ecosystem.
It's like a tiny winged barometer for the environment. It makes you realize how interconnected everything is. Even the smallest creatures can tell us a lot about the state of our planet. Now, let's take a journey back in time and explore the legacy of a truly remarkable leader, Ahilya Bai Holkar. The Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts recently held a special lecture on her life, and has really sparked renewed interest in this extraordinary queen.
And for good reason. Ahilya Bai ruled the Maratha Malwa kingdom back in the 18th century, a time when women in positions of power were very rare.
Yeah.
But she wasn't just a queen in name. She was a skilled administrator, a military strategist, and a patron of the arts.
I've heard stories of her leading armies into battle. That's quite a contrast to the image of a typical queen from that era. What else set her apart?
Ahilya Bai was known for her just and compassionate rule. She held daily public audiences to address her people's concerns, and she made some really progressive legal decisions, like abolishing the practice of seizing property from childless widows.
She sounds like a leader ahead of her time. It's inspiring to see a woman challenging those societal norms and leaving such a positive impact. Any other notable achievements?
She was also a prolific builder, commissioning hundreds of temples, dharamshalas, and wells across India.
Wow.
Her most famous project, though, was the renovation of the Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi, a real testament to her devotion and architectural vision.
So she wasn't just a wise ruler, she was a visionary builder as well. Her story seems like it would be relevant for UPSC aspirants, not just from a historical perspective, but also for understanding leadership and good governance.
Absolutely. Ahilya Bai's legacy provides valuable insights into effective leadership, social justice, and cultural development.
Right.
All themes that are central to the UPSC syllabus. Now, from the historical to the hyper-modern, let's talk about an organization you might not be familiar with. The Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, or TDSAT for short.
I have to admit, TDSAT doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but I'm intrigued. Why is this tribunal so important, especially now in our tech-driven world?
Think of TDSAT as a specialized court for the digital realm.
Okay.
It was established back in 2000 to settle disputes and appeals related to telecom, broadcasting, IT, even airport tariff matters.
So if there's a disagreement between telecom companies, or if a consumer feels wronged by their service provider, they can go to TDSAT for resolution.
Exactly. With technology evolving so rapidly, it's crucial to have a legal framework that can adapt.
That makes sense.
And to ensure they can handle these complex issues, the tribunal's chairperson has to be a former Supreme Court judge or Chief Justice of a high court.
It's like a specialized court for the digital age, protecting the interests of service providers and consumers. Now let's shift focus from the digital to the oceans. There's a new initiative, the Ocean Coordination Mechanism, or OCM, that's making waves, literally.
This is a big development for the wider Caribbean region, including the North Brazil Shelf large marine ecosystem. The OCM aims to bring together countries, intergovernmental organizations, and stakeholders to address the most pressing challenges facing our oceans.
So it's a collaborative effort. What issues are they focusing on?
The OCM has a broad mandate, tackling everything from sustainable fisheries management and ecosystem restoration to pollution control and climate change adaptation.
Okay.
It really recognizes that our oceans are interconnected and that cooperation is key for their health and sustainability.
That's encouraging. Now, speaking of threats to our environment, let's talk about something that's been making headlines. Microplastics. A new study by the Delhi government found microplastics in groundwater samples across the capital.
This is worrying because it highlights how widespread plastic pollution has become. These tiny particles, smaller than 5 millimeters, are everywhere, and now they're even in our groundwater.
Which is a problem since that's a primary source of drinking water for many people. What are the health risks?
That's still being studied, but there's concern that microplastics can absorb and transport harmful pollutants, potentially impacting human health.
I see.
This is a multifaceted issue and needs serious attention, especially for UPSC aspirants who need to be aware of these environmental challenges.
It's a reminder that our actions have consequences, and that even something that seems small, like plastic waste, can have a big impact. Now, before we wrap up part 2, I want to touch on a topic that's often overlooked, but so important for UPSC aspirants: mental health.
You're right. The UPSC journey is demanding, and it's easy to get caught up in the pressure of it all. Taking care of your mental well-being is just as important as studying.
It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't neglect your physical health, and your mental health is just as important to stay focused and motivated.
Absolutely. Remember, it's okay to take breaks and seek support when you need it. Talking about mental health is important.
Welcome back for the final part of today's deep dive.
Yeah, part 3.
We've covered so much already, from global economics to the environment, and even the incredible Ahilya Bai Holkar.
What to think about.
Definitely. And as we wrap up, I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier: mental health.
Oh?
It's so important, but often gets overlooked, especially during intense UPSC prep.
Yeah, it's a demanding journey, intellectually and emotionally. It's easy to get swept up in all the studying, mock tests, and just the pressure to succeed.
It really is. So, any practical advice for aspirants on maintaining a healthy mind during this time?
One key thing is having a balanced routine. Make sure you're not just studying, but also doing things you enjoy. Spending time with family or friends, pursuing hobbies, just taking breaks to unwind.
Right, finding that balance between focused prep and giving yourself time to de-stress.
Exactly. And don't underestimate mindfulness and meditation. Even a few minutes of focused breathing can really help calm the mind, reduce anxiety, and even improve your concentration.
Those are great tips. And I think it's also important to remember that asking for help is not a weakness.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out to family, friends, or professional.
There are resources available, and talking about your challenges can make a huge difference in managing stress and staying positive.
It's about remembering you're not alone.
Exactly.
And that support system is so crucial during UPSC prep.
Definitely. And it's important to keep in mind that this exam is just one step in your journey. Your worth isn't defined by the results. Focus on the process, your goals, and believe in yourself.
Well said. It's about the bigger picture, the knowledge you gain, and who you become throughout this experience. That's something to be proud of, no matter the outcome.
Absolutely. This journey is a chance for growth, self-discovery, and to make a positive impact. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never stop learning.
That's a great note to end on. We've explored so much today, from the everyday to the extraordinary, all to help equip you for your UPSC journey.
Remember, staying informed is key to doing well. Keep an eye on the news, analyze what's happening in the world, connect the dots between issues.
And most importantly, never stop questioning, exploring, and deepening your understanding.
That's what makes a true learner, and that's what will set you apart on this path.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those UPSC dreams alive.